300 men lay dead in the grass at Chaeronea. It was the late summer of 338 BCC, and Philip II of Macedon walked the battlefield, where his army had just crushed the last free cities of Greece. He had killed thousands of men in his life, but when he reached one particular stretch of ground, he stopped. Lying in front of him were 300 soldiers, every one of them fallen facing the enemy, their wounds in the front, never the back, and they were arranged in pairs, side by side. Many of them had died still reaching for the man next to them. Philip already knew who they were, and according to the historian Plutarch, this hardened conqueror stood over the bodies and wept. He said that anyone who imagined these men had done or suffered anything shameful deserved to die, because these were not ordinary soldiers. They were an army of lovers. And by the time we reach the end of this list, you will understand exactly why they were the most feared fighting force in the ancient world. Welcome to the Closet Chronicles, where we drag the stories history tried to bury back into the daylight. Today, we are counting down 12 warriors and generals who loved other men. Some of them you have heard of your entire life and never been told the truth. Some of them left signed proof in their own hand. And the rules here are simple. Where the evidence is rock solid, I will tell you. Where it is rumor, gossip, or guesswork, I will tell you that too. Because the goal is not to win an argument. The goal is to give these men their history back, honestly. Let us begin. Number 12. Julius Caesar and the King of Bithynia. Before he was the most powerful man in Rome, a young Julius Caesar was sent on a diplomatic mission to the court of King Nicomedes IV of Bithynia. He stayed a long time. He went back, and for the rest of his life, his political enemies never let him forget it. They called him the Queen of Bithynia. They claimed he had been the king's lover. One Roman senator stood up and openly referred to Caesar as, and this is a real ancient insult, every woman's man and every man's woman. Now, here's where I have to be straight with you. This is the weakest entry on the list, and I am putting it here on purpose. The stories come mostly from his rivals, and in Roman politics, accusing a man of taking the passive role with another man was a standard way to humiliate him. So, we genuinely cannot confirm what happened in Bithynia. What we can confirm is that the rumor followed Caesar for decades, that his own soldiers sang about it, and that even the most powerful man in the Republic could not scrub it from the record. Make of that what you will. I told you I would be honest, so there it is. Number 11. Lawrence of Arabia. Thomas Edward Lawrence was the British officer who helped lead the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire during the First World War. A guerrilla genius who became a global legend and then spent the rest of his short life trying to disappear from his own fame. And his private life has been argued over ever since. Lawrence dedicated his masterwork, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, to a mysterious figure he called only S.A. Many believe S.A. was a young Arab man named Dahum, whom Lawrence had been deeply attached to before the war, and whose death seems to have haunted him. But I want to be careful here, because Lawrence is genuinely debated. Some historians read him as a gay man who never acted on it. Others point to evidence of deep trauma and a complicated relationship with intimacy of any kind. The truth is, we do not fully know, and anyone who tells you they are certain is selling you something. What is clear is that the love at the center of his life's great book was a love for another man. That much, he wrote down himself. Number 10. The 2 lovers who gave Athens its democracy. In the 6th century BC, Athens was ruled by tyrants, and the men who broke that grip were a pair of lovers named Harmodius and Aristogeiton. The older man, Aristogeiton, and the younger, Harmodius, were a devoted couple when the brother of the ruling tyrant began making unwanted advances toward Harmodius. When the young man refused him, the tyrant's family publicly humiliated his family in revenge. So, the 2 lovers planned a killing. At a great festival, daggers hidden under myrtle branches, they struck. They did not manage to kill the tyrant himself, but they killed his brother, and they lit the fuse. Harmodius was cut down on the spot. Aristogeiton was tortured and executed. But within a few years, the tyranny collapsed and democracy took root, and Athens did something remarkable. It made these two men into official heroes. Statues in the marketplace, songs at drinking parties. Their descendants given honors for generations. The Athenians did not hide that the founders of their liberty were a couple. They built monuments to it. Number 9. The Prussian who saved the American Revolution. In the brutal winter of 1777, George Washington's army at Valley Forge was freezing, starving, and falling apart. They did not know how to drill, how to march, or how to hold a line. And then a Prussian baron arrived in a fur-lined sleigh with a greyhound at his side and turned that ragged militia into a real army. His name was Friedrich Wilhelm von Steuben, and the United States might not exist without him. Von Steuben had actually come to America partly because rumors about his relationships with men had made Europe uncomfortable for him. He never married. He arrived with a handsome young secretary. At Valley Forge, he formed intense, lifelong bonds with two young officers, William North and Benjamin Walker. And when he died, he left his entire estate to them, having formally made them his heirs, a legal arrangement gay men of that era often used in place of a marriage they were forbidden. The historical evidence here is circumstantial, but it is substantial, and the Museum of the American Revolution itself now tells his story this way. The man who wrote the drill manual the U.S. Army used for decades was, by all the evidence we have, a gay man. And Washington knew and did not care because the man could fight. Number 8. The Tiger of Kai and the letter he signed. This one is not a rumor. This one is a signed document, and it still exists. Takeda Shingen was one of the most powerful warlords of 16th century Japan, a military genius nicknamed the Tiger of Kai. And in the samurai world, intimate bonds between an older warrior and a younger one were an established tradition, woven into the warrior code itself. Shingen had such a bond with a young retainer named Kosaka Masanobu, who would grow up to become one of his celebrated 24 generals. And here is the part that should give you chills. The actual pledge Shingen wrote survives to this day, held in the historical archive of the University of Tokyo. In it, the warlord swears to the younger man that he has not been sleeping with another retainer and has no intention of doing so, insists that he wants only to be close to him, and calls on the gods of Japan as his witnesses. Nearly 500 years later, you can still read a warlord promising his faithfulness to the man he loved. History did not erase this one. It could not. He signed it. Number 7. The Demon King and the page who died beside him. Oda Nobunaga was the warlord who began the unification of Japan, a ruthless and brilliant conqueror so feared that he called himself the Demon King of the Sixth Heaven. And at his side, as his page and his beloved, was a young man named Moriran Maru, famed for his beauty, his loyalty, and his devotion. In 1582, Nobunaga was betrayed. One of his own generals turned an army against him and trapped him in a temple in Kyoto called Honnoji, surrounded with almost no men to defend him. Nobunaga chose to die on his own terms rather than be captured, and Moriran Maru, his lover, stayed. He fought to defend the temple. He is said to have helped his lord in his final moments, and then he died there too, refusing to abandon him. In Japanese memory, their loyalty to one another became the stuff of legend, retold in plays and stories for centuries. The conqueror and the young man who would not leave his side, dying together in the flames. Number 6. The warrior king history spent 2 centuries straightening out. Frederick II of Prussia, Frederick the Great, was one of the finest military commanders Europe ever produced. He fought off the combined might of Austria, France, and Russia, and he turned Prussia into a great power. He is a giant of military history. and most modern scholars now agree that he was, in their words, primarily homosexual. As a young prince, Frederick tried to flee his violent father with a close companion, an officer named Hans Hermann von Katte. They were caught, and his father's punishment was monstrous. He forced the young Frederick to watch as von Katte was beheaded beneath his window. Frederick reportedly collapsed. For the rest of his life, he avoided his wife, surrounded himself with men, built a private retreat called Sanssouci, where women were essentially unwelcome, and filled it with art celebrating male love, including a sculpture of the Emperor Hadrian's drowned lover. For 200 years, biographers and nationalists worked hard to call all of this mere friendship. The evidence did not cooperate. The soldier king who broke armies loved men, and the historians who tried to bury it eventually lost. Number 5. Alexander the Great and the other half of himself. Alexander the Great conquered most of the known world before he was 33, and the most important person in his life was not a wife. It was a man named Hephaestion, a boyhood companion who became his closest general and the love of his life. Now, I have to be honest about the debate because it matters. Ancient writers describe these two as inseparable, and they reached for the most famous pair of devoted companions in Greek legend to describe them: Achilles and his beloved Patroclus. Whether their relationship was physical is something historians genuinely argue about to this day. But here is what is not in dispute. When Hephaestion died suddenly, Alexander, the man who had conquered empires without flinching, completely broke. He refused to eat. He lay on the body for a day. He executed the doctor. He ordered a period of mourning across his entire empire, planned a monument that would have cost a fortune beyond imagining, and within months he was dead himself. Many believe partly of grief. You can argue about the bedroom. You cannot argue about the love. It killed him. Number 4. The general who commanded the army of lovers. Now we come back to those 300 men in the grass at Chaeronea, because to understand them, you have to meet the two generals who made them legendary. The first is Pelopidas. Pelopidas was a Theban commander who helped free his city from foreign occupation, and then took charge of that elite unit of paired lovers and forged them into a single, concentrated weapon. Under him, they stopped being scattered among the ranks and became a hammer, used to smash through the strongest part of an enemy line. At a battle called Tagira, he led them against a Spartan force that outnumbered them at least 2-1, and he shattered it. That had never happened before. Sparta was supposed to be unbeatable. Pelopidas, leading an army built on love between men, proved that it was not. He fought and won at the side of those couples for years, until he finally fell in battle, and his soldiers were said to have mourned him like family. Number 3. The man who broke Sparta forever. Pelopidas had a partner in all of this, a fellow Theban general and, by several ancient accounts, a man whose own devotion ran to other men. His name was Epaminondas, and he is one of the most underrated military minds in all of history. In 371 BC, at a place called Leuctra, Epaminondas did the impossible. He faced the Spartan army, the most feared infantry on earth, and instead of fighting them the traditional way, he invented a completely new battle tactic, stacking his strongest troops into an overwhelming hammer blow on one flank. The army of lovers led the charge. The Spartan king was killed. The Spartan myth of invincibility died on that field and never recovered. Epaminondas then marched into Spartan territory itself, something no enemy had done in centuries, and freed the people Sparta had enslaved for generations. One ancient writer said that of all the great Greeks, Epaminondas was the greatest, and he built his masterpiece around 300 men who loved each other. Number 2. The emperor who turned his lover into a god. Hadrian ruled the Roman Empire at the absolute height of its power. He commanded its legions, he walked its frontiers, he built the wall across Britain that still bears his name, and the great love of his life was a young man from what is now Turkey named Antinous. They traveled the empire together, and then, on a journey down the Nile, Antinous drowned. We still do not know exactly how. What we know is what Hadrian did next, and it is staggering. The most powerful man on earth was so consumed by grief that he did something no Roman had ever done for a commoner. He declared Antinous a god. He founded an entire city on the spot where he died and named it after him. He ordered statues of the young man raised in every corner of the empire, and so many survive that Antinous is one of the most recognizable faces from the entire ancient world. An emperor who could have anything could not have the one thing he wanted back. So, he made his lost lover immortal in marble. You can still look into that face today. And that brings us finally back to the beginning. Number 1. The Sacred Band of Thebes. This was the army that Pelopidas commanded and Epaminondas unleashed. 300 warriors, 150 couples. The single most elite fighting unit in Greece, and it was built deliberately entirely out of pairs of male lovers. The idea came from a simple, devastating piece of logic. A man might run from a battle, but he will not run in front of the person he loves. He would rather die than look like a coward in those eyes. So, the Thebans took that bond and made it the foundation of an army. Each man fought beside the one he could not bear to fail. And for around 40 years, it worked beyond anyone's imagination. They broke the Spartans at Tegea. They led the charge that ended Spartan power forever at Leuctra. They were, for an entire generation, undefeated, until Chaeronea. Until that summer day in 338 BC, when they faced the rising power of Macedon and the young prince who would become Alexander the Great. The rest of the Greek army broke and ran. The Sacred Band did not. Surrounded, with no hope left, every one of those 150 couples chose to stand and die together rather than leave each other behind. And that is what Philip found when he walked the field. That is why the conqueror wept. Today, near the village of Chaeronea, a great stone lion still stands over the spot where they were buried. Beneath it, archaeologists found the bones of 254 men, laid carefully side by side. For more than 2,000 years, the world tried to look away from what they were. But the lion never moved. It is still standing guard over an army of lovers, refusing to let anyone forget. 12 warriors. Some certain, some debated, all of them real. And every single one of them spent centuries with the truest part of who they were, quietly edited out of the story. We are putting it back. If one of these men surprised you, tell me which one in the comments, because I read them. If you want more of the history they tried to keep in the closet, you know what to do. I will see you in the next one.